Congrats to Fresno. Really good football team. You watch the tape, it's what you saw leading up to the game. They're disciplined, they're sound. They did everything the right way, and credit to their coaching staff and what they did. From our standpoint, tough loss. We didn't play very well, in my opinion, and it really came down to details. We had 11 penalties, which we can't have. We were 3 for 12 on third down, and they were 7 for 10. And in the green zone, we scored 1 touchdown. They scored 4. So again, we've got to be way better at being just disciplined and doing what we do. I thought our effort and our energy was there, but again, it came down to detail football, and that's what football typically comes down to: who plays with more details, who understands situations and takes advantage of them, and we got to be better that way. But we got outcoached and we got outplayed, and we got to learn from that and move forward. The one thing I'll tell you about this team is they have had the ability to grow and respond, and they've done that often. So whenever their backs have been against the wall a little bit, they come out swinging, and I expect that from our football team. But definitely yesterday we got back. We had our team meeting. There was definitely some guys who were disappointed in their performances, and again, more so the details. I always think our energy's there. I think we played extremely hard. But again, we jumped off sides. We did things that are very uncharacteristic of our football team. So we'll get back on track this week, and it's good to close out the out of conference play. And I told our team, the one thing looking at the out of conference stuff that we got to do a way better job of, and I don't know why we think this way, but we got to go into these games expecting to win, and I don't think we do that right now. We go in there and we attempt to win, or we try to win, but we're a good football team, and you got to have that mindset of expecting to win in games like that one and like the other ones we played. But excited to get to league play, playing a really good Miami team. Chuck is a very good friend of mine. He's done a great job there. You look at it, he's had a lot of success the past 3 years: Bahamas Bowl, the Frisco Bowl, 2019 MAC champions. He's built a very good culture there and really consistency throughout that whole program. And you see it all over the tape. They're led by their quarterback, who has been there for quite a bit of time, Gabbard. I remember recruiting Gabbard at CBC back in the day. So a really good player. He leads the team. He's the face of the program and the leader of the team. And they've got a really good receiver, number 10, Gage, who transferred in, who's putting up unreal numbers. I think he's one of the best receivers we played up to this point. We're going to have to do a good job with him. And then on defense, they got several players that are really good players, but it's anchored really by their starting linebacker, Matthew, who's a redshirt junior, who does a good job of getting them aligned, getting them where they're supposed to be. Then they've got 2 really good defensive ends as well that we got to do a good job of making sure that we know where they're at and do a good job protecting against them. So really good football team, but excited to get to MAC play, excited to get back to Dix and play in front of our fans and our student body and get this thing turned in the right direction.
Let's open up for questions. We'll start here in the room with sideline reporter Dan Richardson. Dave?
Coach, you really got some traction in that first half against Fresno State with your run game. Second half, not as much. So how do you get back to that successful run game this Saturday?
Yeah, I think that we just got to make sure we execute no matter what the situation of the game is. The first half we were playing competitive football, and then the score kind of dictated how we behaved, and I didn't like that at all. We got to make sure we play with our details, we play with our urgency, no matter what the score is, and that's how I look at it. I don't look at the result. I look at how we got to the result. And how we got to result is because we didn't finish, we didn't accelerate in the middle, and we got to do a better job with that. The play calls didn't change, the execution changed. We got to be better at that.
How do you expect your defensive leaders to react this week going into this game, especially those that have experienced MAC play going into your first conference game?
I expect them to respond. I know they will. This team has always done that. They did that in the past. They'll do that now, and they've always been really good at that. So I expect our defensive leaders to respond. Their energy yesterday was great, and we'll just keep working with that.
And one more, how much does it add that sense of comfort being back home for your first conference game, being in Dick Stadium as opposed to being on the road?
I think it's great. I think our players are looking forward to getting back to Dick Stadium. I think that's where they feel like home. It's where they're used to practicing, playing. I think they'll be ready to rock and roll for sure.
Let's go to our virtual room and bring in from the Hustle Belt Steve Hedluck. Steve, if you'd unmute and ask your questions for Coach.
Hi, Coach. How did you feel that the offensive line is gelling together 2 games in a row, not allowing a sack for a unit that didn't have too much starting experience coming into the season? How do you feel about them right now?
You know what? I'm really impressed with their growth. They grew last week, and they grew this past game as well. I think Cam Golden's doing a great job leading that group. He's kind of taking them by his reins and kind of really got them moving in the right direction. I think we finally found 5 guys that really work, with Nick Bryan being the center, and I think we're going to work Drew Page in there more this week. But we've got 5 guys that I think are starting to play cohesively together, and that's exciting for that group for sure. We just got to keep growing though, and I think they are. I think Matt Limeger was doing a good job with the group, and I think they're encouraging. I think they're trending up for sure.
And then just it was a grueling non-conference slate of UCF, Arkansas, Fresno State, all three of those FBS games were on the road. What do you learn most about your team through just a challenging schedule like that?
You know what? I look at it the other way. I think we've got to see exactly where our program is, and we're not there yet. When you talk about playing with those type of teams, we got to get to a point where, and I truly mean this. I've been a part of teams that win those games, but the way we thought at Western Michigan when we got in those games against BCS opponents was we were expecting to win, and we've got to start expecting to win. We're a talented group. We've got skill. It's about preparing yourself to go win those games and playing at a high level. And I think we're not there yet. I think we're growing towards that. But I'm excited about our growth that we made throughout the whole non-conference. But we got to get back to work and keep, fixing our deficiencies and getting better as a football program.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
Let's stay in our virtual room. Bring in Derek DeMitt from Believe Land Media. Derek, if you don't need it, ask your questions for Coach.
Thanks, Dan. Coach, good morning.
Good morning.
Coming off of a difficult loss, you said on Saturday night, or for most of us Sunday morning, about this being the first game that you didn't see any progress per se. After looking through the tape, was there anything that maybe stood out that wasn't there in the moments following the game that you can look to build on?
Yeah, when I said that comment, I think it was meant more as a football team as a whole. I didn't think that our response mechanism was one that showed progress. There was definitely individuals who made progress for sure. I think our offensive line as a unit made progress. I think our running back unit, I think X made a lot of progress from the first couple games for sure. I thought that our quarterback played way better than he'd been playing up to that point. So there was progress made, but overall as a team, when you look at the philosophy and the core of our core pillars, I didn't think that we made progress from basically a response mechanism. I thought other games we had response to adversity was way better than what it was on Saturday. So that's where I want to see us get back to growing in that element a little bit. And that's what I told to the football team. I said, listen, you didn't grow as a football team as a whole in how we handle adversity. And I said, that's where we've got to be better. And I probably thought we were further along than we were in that game. But they know that, and they took complete ownership of that. Coaches, myself, our coaching staff, and our players all took ownership of it, and we'll get better for sure.
I'm sorry if I missed this, if you've already talked about it, but returning home, now being in the MAC play, you mentioned following the Central Connecticut game that you were very proud of, the student body and how they showed up. Now that we're getting into the conference games, do you have a message for the student body or just for Kent State fans in general?
Absolutely. Student body, we need you. We need you loud and impactful and doing what you do. I thought they did a great job the first game of bringing an atmosphere to the game and an energy to the game. And I told our student body, this is your football team. This is your team. And they play for you to make you proud of them, to make you fans and want to come back, and the experience and the energy that they bring. We need them. With the Miami of Ohio team that's 3-1, beat Cincinnati, we need a home field advantage. And I know our student body's up to the challenge, and I know they're excited about it. I see them on social media following us and giving us the attention, and I know they're going to be there in full effect, and we need them this week for sure.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
Let's go back into the virtual room. Bring in the radio voice of the Flash, and Rob Politsky. Rob, any questions for Coach?
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Did you get some sleep, Rob?
I did. I did real well. I did about 6 hours when we got home.
There you go.
It was basically midnight to 7 a.m. this morning.
Oh, jeez.
I'm ready to go.
There we go.
I almost feel human again.
There you go.
I was wondering, especially early in the game, were you surprised by the amount of times Fresno State passed the ball, or did you expect that? They just seemed right away early on to really be, attacking us passing. Was that a surprise?
No, it wasn't. They'd shown that against Arizona State to want to get people out in space. They've got a dynamic receiver, and I think that they want to get him the ball in his hands, let him do what he do, and they did that. I think that when you look at that game, they outcoached us, and I have no problem saying that because I have total confidence in my coaching ability. But they outcoached us, and what I mean by that, they did some things schematically to put our players in conflict, and stuff they hadn't shown. and then stuff that just slowed us down. One thing about our defense, why they've been playing so well, is they've been able to play aggressive, and they've been able to get off the ball and get off the snap count up front, our defensive line, and really get a pulse on the game and set the tone. You saw Fresno early on, they kind of mixed up their cadence a little bit and got us to jump off sides. Well, that naturally slows your defense down a little bit to play, because as coaches, they come to the sideline, now you're like, hey, watch the ball, don't jump off sides, so it makes you play a little bit on your heels. And then the second drive, you see them throw a trick play in there where it really messed with our rules and our principles, and again, kind of put us on this kind of retreat mode a little bit with what they were doing. So we've got to be better as coaches as preparing ourselves for stuff that we might not see on tape that they could potentially do, which the past game wasn't that, but some of the tricks and some of the stuff they did with their cadence and doing some different things with formations, we just got to anticipate that better as a coaching staff. And we're learning as our players are of how to be better as coaches and how to put our guys in the best situation and what we got from a talent standpoint. But that's all credit to Fresno and what they did there to exploit some of our weaknesses in our defense.
So moving forward to this week, you mentioned Gabbard already. Can you compare him to, Plumlee, Akeen, Jefferson, any of the guys that you've seen to this point? How would he compare? And playing against those really good quarterbacks that we've seen in the non-conference, do you feel that helps you prepare for a quarterback as good as Gabbard is?
For sure. I definitely think we played some elite quarterbacks. I think he's probably very similar to the guy we just played. He puts the ball where it's supposed to be. He's accurate. He knows the system in and out. He's not gonna probably kill you with his legs, but he can. He has the ability to use it, but he wants to throw the ball first. But just a really good manager of the game, and I think those are the most dangerous quarterbacks, honestly. Guys who can manage the game, not turn the ball over, put the ball where it's supposed to be, where it's supposed to go, and be accurate with it. And that's what he is. And I remember, like I said, recruiting him out of high school. He was kind of deemed because of his size, but you always saw the competitor in him, and his family just has that nature to him. And I know he's really close to Chuck, and I know Chuck very well, very good friend, and I think he basically exudes what he is, and I think that's what's impressive about the young man.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
And we'll wrap up this portion of the press conference with Rob's partner in the booth and Tom Evans. Tom, any questions for Coach?
Yeah, and Coach, it looked like you got the outside run game going, which we hadn't had to be more concentrated inside. Was that something you guys picked up in film, or was that just a natural progression of the offense right now?
Yeah, they did some stuff that I think it's a little bit of both. I think they did some stuff that gave it, a little bit more life than other teams had been up to this point. We felt like we ran pretty well with this team from a standpoint of being able to get out in space and run the outside zone, which typically your O-line's got to run pretty well and be able to get on people in that scheme. And we felt like we matched them up a little bit better with this team. It'd been harder to get going against the UCFs and the Arkansas because their backers were so fast and they could get downhill on you and you couldn't get them in space. But this team, we kind of matched up a little bit better. Then I think our offensive line is slowly but surely starting to gel a little bit. And I knew it would come at some point. And I think it's starting to come to fruition a little bit with them and the running backs coming into one unit. And I think offensively as a whole, you're starting to see these guys kind of get in a rhythm. And that's what we want. And we knew that would take time, and it's still going to take more time. But you're starting to see who Mike likes to throw the ball to, who he's comfortable with. More guys are getting involved in the scheme and the system. And then in the run game, I think you saw X and Gavin really start to feel comfortable with their own line and get a pulse of where these balls are going to be hitting at. So I think there was a lot of good stuff with that outside zone for sure, but just overall as an offense of growing.
Coach, you head into MAC play. I think that's probably one of the goals you got on your goal board is maybe to win the MAC East. And you talk to the team about the reset button, and we're going to take what we had up to this point and use that as a starting point. But we really have an opportunity now to still achieve some of the goals that we put on the plate for us.
Yeah, we're going to take it. We got one philosophy in our program. That's week by week. We're going to be 1-0 in the Miami of Ohio's championship season. That's literally how we look at it. We want to win each week, and this week is no different than the other 4 games we played. How do we be 1-0 in Miami of Ohio week? That's all our players are focused on. That's all I'm focused on. And if you stack those up, then it typically gets you the results you want. And so we're gonna keep that approach going forward. What can we learn from the last game to help us, play better this game is what we're looking at this week and getting us back on track. But I think you've seen the growth of our football team through each week with that mindset. And last week, for some reason, we kind of got off of that, and we got to get back to that, being focused on how do we beat Miami of Ohio and how do we put our players in the best situation to be 1-0 in the Miami of Ohio championship season.
Thanks,
Yeah, thank you.
Coach, thanks. Any final thoughts before we bring in Devin?
No, I appreciate the coverage. And like I said, student body, we need you this week to be loud and be there and make it hard on Miami of Ohio. And we know you're our edge to having success here at Dix. And we know that you'll be there in full force. And I'll be right there with you, cheering and bringing the energy and the juice. But can't wait to see you this Saturday at Dix Stadium. And go Flashes, Kent Grit. Thank you.
All right, we'd like to introduce our student athlete portion of this week's press conference. We've got Devin Nicholson, a graduate linebacker out of the Detroit area. He came to us from the University of Missouri. And Devin, thank you for joining us. Just some overall thoughts about your experience so far and where the team is through 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, just going through the first 4 weeks, we've just been trying to progress and come together as a team. You know, it's always new, being in a new environment, having new coaching, but starting to gel more as a team as we go along the season.
Let's open it up for questioning. We'll start with Steve Helwick from the Hustle Belt. Steve, if you have any questions for Devin, please unmute.
Devin, as one of the more experienced guys on this defense with your time at Mizzou, what's it been like just with all these pieces coming from different places, a lot of new starters this year? What's the defense been like?
Yeah, it's just about getting us all on the same page, you know, using our experiences. You know, everyone has different experiences, using those to come together and help each other, you know, in a form. Everyone has their own skills, so being able to come together and use them as a collective group is pretty much what we've been trying to do so far.
And what do you think you've learned most about this team so far heading into this Miami game after the first 4 weeks?
Yeah, just learning about like what drives a lot of the players, you know, because when playing these football games, you got to have that how. So everyone has their different how. So just learning everyone's how and what makes them go as hard as they do.
Thanks, Devin.
Kane, any questions for Devin?
Kevin, you lead the team in tackles, so how would you describe your style of play defensively when you go after the football?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the ball every single time, like every chance possible, trying my hardest to get to the ball as well as my team, you know. That's not just for me going out there and making plays. It's because my defensive line is setting up plays to be made. You know, they're doing their job back end, they're doing their job in coverage to be able to have those plays. So just all of us coming together as a team.
And as someone who has experience playing for a few games here and in the SEC with Missouri, after that Fresno State game, what did you and some of the other defensive leaders say to each other on how to bounce back this weekend?
Yeah, just coming together and thinking about all of the things that we could have done better from the game and knowing what we needed to work on going forward.
What are some of those specific areas that you guys are trying to focus on to fix up so you can improve against Miami?
Yeah, we definitely got to do a better job controlling the controllable, not self-inflicting penalties, offsides, holding, face mask, those type of penalties, and just doing a better job tackling.
Let's go back into our virtual room, bring in our radio voice, Rob Blinsky. Rob, any questions for Devin?
Yeah, Devin, I was wondering, what do you think your strengths are as a linebacker, as a player? What makes you good?
I just think my understanding of the game, you know, I've played a lot of football, so being able to see things sometimes even before they happen and noticing different tendencies.
And what's it like playing for Coach Duggan in his philosophies, you know, defensively?
It's great, you know, different scheme than I've been in before, but it's been a pretty good scheme, you know. Everyone has the opportunity to make plays, and it's a really good scheme.
And then lastly, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Coach, going up against Gabbert for your job, you know, as linebacker. What does he look like on film compared to some of the really good quarterbacks you've seen in the non-conference, and just kind of talk about the challenge for this Saturday going up against him and that Miami offense?
Yeah, I mean, every quarterback is good in their own way, so it's kind of hard to compare people when everyone's different, but he's definitely a really good quarterback, and we just got to be on our best job to be able to stop him from doing what he does.
Thanks, and good luck, Devin.
Thank you.
We'll wrap up our press conference with Rob's partner of the booth and Tom Evans. Do you have any questions for Devin?
Yeah, I just want Devin, you know, defenses anymore, you just don't roll 11 guys out there. You're constantly rotating a defensive lineman in, even at the linebacker spot. What kind of, how are you guys right now with a comfort zone as far as those rotations and and working people in and out and all fitting into the one common scheme at this point. Well, 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like everyone knowing like the different, especially for linebacker, you know, everyone being on one accord, learning all three different positions because you never know which one you might have an opportunity to play at. So just everyone knowing what they need to do whenever their number's called.
Do you pick up a little added responsibility because the linebackers, you know, you got to tie into the run game as far as know what the fronts are, but also tie into the coverage game because of, you know, you may be a different coverage on every play of the game. Is that some added responsibility for you as a linebacker? And do you feel the need to pull all that together for the defense?
I mean, that's typically what linebackers have to do, you know, play the run as well as the pass. So we got to be ready to do that at any given moment.
Thanks, Devin.
Thank you.
Devin Nicholson, ladies and gentlemen. Devin, thank you for a few moments of your time, and best of luck as we turn our attention towards MAC play here at home.
Thank you.